Hi, this is Shauna, the CEO and founder of Fuel Talent. One of the things I have loved most in my 25-year recruiting career has always been the stories that people tell. Stories of leadership, career choices, company ideas, and team building. My inspiration for starting the What Fuels You podcast came from being curious about people's lives and wanting to help share their stories. What path brought them to this place? What decisions did they make that led to failures and successes? Who influenced those decisions, and what lessons were learned along the way? I hope you enjoy the What Fuels You podcast. Andy Liu, today's guest on the What Fuels You podcast, is no stranger to entrepreneurship. Andy started 2 companies back to back. His first company, NetConversions, at age 23. His second company, Buddy TV, an entertainment-based website which generated content about television programs and sporting events, sold to Vizio. Now Andy is co-founder and managing partner at Unlock Venture Partners and the founder of a nonprofit focused on improving the lives of those in developing countries through technical training. He is also a well-known influencer in the Seattle tech community, husband and father. Welcome, Andy.
Thanks, Shauna.
Thanks
Great
for
to
coming.
be here.
I'm so glad that you're here. Okay, we're starting with rapid fire.
Okay.
It's very specific to you, so here
All
we
right.
go. Poker or ping pong?
Poker.
Favorite workout?
7-minute workout.
I know. Don't you mean times 3?
Times 3.
You
That's
gotta do
right.
it 3 times, Andy. Most valuable trait you look for in an entrepreneur?
Grit.
I like that. Clearly, you've been asked that before. Best city for late night partying?
New York City.
I agree. Biggest fear?
Biggest fear. Falling out of a building.
Oh, geez. Do you have a fear of heights?
No, but falling out of a building is a big fear.
I thought you were going to say something like complacency or something, because I feel like you're always moving.
Yes.
Like
yes.
metaphorically and literally.
Yep.
I feel like you're just like an on-the-go person. So I thought that's what you'd say. Okay, so where are you from? Where'd you
I
grow
am
up?
born and raised in Seattle.
Born and raised in
So
Seattle.
one of the old natives of Seattle.
Nice. I like
Yeah.
that we both have that in common. And how do you feel about Seattle today versus how you felt as a child?
It's changed a lot. Yeah. I think it was pretty sleepy growing up. You know, there's a few big employers in town, and now it's just changed dramatically. So,
Yeah.
so it's been fun to be a part of that ride and watch it happen.
Yeah, I love it. It's been
Yeah.
super fun. And so, so you're raised here, and you have siblings?
I have a younger sister.
Cool. Is she like techie also?
She is in the nonprofit sector.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
Yeah,
Saving
yeah.
the world.
That's right. That's right.
I like it. What was the focus or kind of the values of if you had to pull them out, like your parents? What did they value the most?
Yeah, so they were immigrants. So, born in China, moved to Taiwan during the revolution, came to Seattle to study at the University of Washington where they met. And so definitely had to kind of build something from the ground up. And so my dad was entrepreneurial and started some companies. So I got to see the ups and downs and high variance, I would say, in growing up, but really inspiring at the same time. And so I think that's where I kind of got my first taste of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. I almost feel like that could make you fearless, because if somebody that you've watched and who's been ahead of you has succeeded and failed, it almost gives you permission that that's okay.
Right.
You're like,
yeah.
It's not like, what if I don't succeed? Because you've seen like this is just how it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So did they want you to pick something kind of more stable?
What was interesting is I grew up pretty fast. And so, during some of the more challenging times of building a business from my family's past was that, I was often thrust into working earlier than most folks. So I started working full time around 15, 16. And
what were you doing?
Worked in a variety of jobs. First one was in a pizza joint,
Nice.
and then moved to AT&T and worked there, doing relay operating. And
What is that?
relay operator is working with kind of the hard of hearing, and being able to translate between a hearing person and a hard of hearing person.
Okay.
And so you're kind of the middleman, and so you
Got
have
it.
to type fast and also be able to add and inject the ability to read conversations in between.
And what else did you do?
Then I moved to some smaller companies. So went to Boeing, went to a startup called Safeware. So yeah, a variety of different types of companies.
When you say you grew up fast, like how come?
I think when most kids were probably playing sports and hanging out and so forth, I was working. And
because you were raised in a family that valued work, or because they needed the money, or you liked it?
Yeah, we had some financial challenges, and so I ended up working pretty hard early on.
And did your sister work also?
She did not. I think she was definitely like the kind of the artist in the family, and kind of the more I think had a bigger heart, that sort of thing. And I was definitely like, hey, I think I'm capable of generating income. So that's kind of where I ended up.
Yeah. When did you first realize, like, I think I've got the entrepreneurial bug?
I got the bug pretty early. I think kind of a funny story growing up was, I felt like my parents would invite friends over to the home, and I found that that's a great opportunity to learn how to sell. And so I'd literally put everything on sale inside the home and embarrass my parents, but that's how I would make money, and realize
that is so awesome.
It was actually,
I don't know. I know I introduced you to my brother, but he was similar. So coming over, my parents' friends would like park the car, go in for dinner. They'd come out and be like, I washed your car.
Right.
You know, or hey, your car needed some gas. I moved it and it needed some gas. Went and filled it up.
Yeah. I love it. And it was 100% margin. So, it was fantastic. So it was a good business.
Your parents didn't take a percentage. They're like, hello, that's actually ours.
Yeah.
That is so funny. I know, I love how our kids think everything's theirs. I'm like, it's actually ours.
That's right.
And so was education a big, I know that you're highly educated and obviously brilliant. And so was that a focus?
I did not get pushed hard from my family on education. I was always self-motivated. And I think part of it was because I didn't need to sleep much. I learned that pretty early. And so besides working, I could do pretty well
How much
school.
sleep do you get?
Before trying to sleep hack, I was probably averaging 4 to 5 hours, somewhere around there. Yeah.
And so I know that you wear your, what's the ring called?
I'm using an Aura ring now.
The Aura ring.
Yeah.
And now you're getting what?
I'm trying to push 8 to 9.
And are you doing it?
I would say I'm probably 50-50.
And does it give you like a percentage of quality?
Yes.
So where are you at?
It again depends, 50-50. I would say most of the time I'm trying to push for like the high end of high quality sleep, and I'd say 3 or 4 days a week I'm getting that.
Nice. And does it make a difference?
Oh, massive. Yeah, I had no idea that the impact it would make. I will say had I known this earlier, I would have slept more. Yeah. It really makes a huge difference. And I was fine. Like I felt like I was able to make good decisions, being able to operate and so forth.
It's probably impacting your drinking if you're going out, because you're like, when you look at it in the morning, you're like, I got a 70% or 7 out of 10.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. So you went to SPU here and studied electrical engineering?
Yes.
That's so hardcore.
Yeah.
How did you, what is that exactly? Electrical engineering.
Right. Yeah, well, it's hard for me to figure it out, but what I did learn about myself was I could pass the tests, but I knew that long term, I was not the best at electrical engineering. So this is.
Were you interested in it?
I was interested in the sense that it had a lot of intellectual requirements in terms of math and sciences and all that, which I was fine at, but I wasn't the best at it. So, but it was enjoyable to learn technical skills, and so I feel like it's given me the ability to be able to talk with engineers and be able to get what I want out of engineering.
Oh, for sure.
But also learned a lot about, where I wanted to go in terms of my career. And so pretty quickly realized that I wanted to move into business and entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm. And did you go straight from undergrad to get your MBA at Wharton, or did you work in between there? I
worked for 1 year in between.
And doing what?
At that time, I was at a kind of a later stage startup called Active Voice, and they were in the voicemail. Can you imagine
old school
in the voicemail product category? And they eventually sold to Cisco. So it was,
but progressive at the time.
Yes, yeah,
they were voicemail?
They were cutting edge voicemail, like go into your email box and so forth. So
yeah. And so you knew that you wanted to go into business.
Yes,
ideally something in tech. And I mean, you picked the best of the best business school, Wharton. Was that your top school, your top choice?
Oh, it was funny. I had never even visited Wharton. I just had read a magazine that had the rankings, and said, I want to go there. And so I applied and was fortunate to get in. And also, I always wanted to go to the East Coast.
Yeah.
I had the chance to do it on undergrad, but chose not to. But was very excited about going to the East Coast and checking that out, and had the best time there.
That's awesome. And so, if you were giving advice to, a 22-year-old, would you tell them to go back and get an MBA?
Oh, that's a great question.
Have you applied it?
Yeah. Well, I would say if you have clarity of where you want to go, then business school is a great stepping stone to help you get there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have that clarity, like there are a lot of folks who are like, I don't know what I want to do, but hopefully business school will help me get there.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you're probably shortchanging yourself. And so I knew before going in there, I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I felt like, hey, I'm going to use those 2 years to
some
hone
people
my
use
skills.
it from a pedigree perspective too, to make themselves more attractive as a candidate, and you didn't really need that because you're like, I'm going to work for myself.
That's right. Yep.
So interesting. And then also a lot of the people that I've met with their MBA, especially from like a Wharton type of school, are in investment banking or financial services or consulting or some of the kind of more traditional routes.
Yep. And that's a great way to kind of get a foot in the door. So those firms are interviewing at Wharton and Stanford.
Well, and also
so
people have said that it's been great for them as far as building their network.
Yes.
Because you're meeting other people who are like-minded and driven. And
absolutely.
Has that helped in your entrepreneurial endeavors?
Definitely. So my first company, I actually started at Wharton. So I was sitting in the back of a classroom listening to a marketing professor give a talk on his research. And I approached him after class to ask him if he'd considered commercializing that research. And he said, no. And so I said, hey, how about I try to commercialize your research? And he said, sure, why not? So that started NetConversions. And
And who's your co-founder of NetConversions?
At that time, I started the company with David Niu.
Okay.
And so he was a classmate of mine at Wharton. And so that's when we got started. I actually, during the break, went back to Seattle and raised capital from Seattle. And
just
went
in and
back.
out? You're like, hey, it's me. I need to raise a little capital.
Yeah. And then...
That's great. How'd you come up with the name?
NetConversions, wow, that was a long time ago. I think it was available on .com, and
because nowadays it's like to get the name
it's challenging.
Yeah. And cool names of your companies that you started. So NetConversions. So how long was that company around, and where did it begin, and where did it end?
Yeah. So we started it in '99. So right at the kind of the tech boom.
Yeah.
Again, I think I was really naive starting the company because, I feel like I was learning a ton from reading TechCrunch and Fortune magazine and Wired and so forth. And how hard is it to, start a company? How hard is it to raise money? Turns out very hard.
Yeah. But how valuable for you now as an investor, which we're going to get to. But right, that you've been an operator and you've been through it. Yeah,
absolutely. That's one of the things I would say is a great learning is it's not easy. So part of it is being able to evaluate an entrepreneur that understands it's not easy, but will enjoy that journey.
Yeah.
But also realize, hey, it's going to take serious grit, serious persistence.
And just the stomach for it.
That's right.
Do I even have the stomach for this?
Yeah, the variance is too high. And it may never pay off.
And it may never pay off.
Right.
And so how did you go about, was there a process, or I guess at the time you were young and, as you said, naive, how did you go about finding a co-founder? Were there skill sets, or was it just trusting your gut on the human being that on David?
Yeah. I think, again, it was a little bit naive. So part of it is actually a bonus, I think, because you don't know what you don't know. And so you might as well just do it and then learn. So we're not stuck in analysis paralysis. So I felt David was a great partner because he came from a consulting background and I came from an engineering background. How about let's combine and work together and try to have a couple of new perspectives. And so that's one that I would definitely carry is just making sure kind of self-awareness of what your strengths and weaknesses are, and can you offset that with a co-founder that has strengths and weaknesses in other areas.
Right.
And so
that seems very important. And then
yeah.
also maybe your work styles or your work ethics, your communication styles.
Yeah.
Also, are we going in the same direction? Do we want the same things?
That's right. That's right.
So that was good and lucky.
Yeah, very lucky. In fact, when we make decisions on investing, we really like co-founders have worked together in the past.
Of course.
Because, I ended up starting my second company with David too, and it turned out great because we knew kind of our mannerisms, how we work together,
good,
how do we
bad,
convert. Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
and I think that's probably one of the most critical factors of success is having that sort of rapport, long-term rapport with a co-founder. And we were just fortunate that we didn't know each other long, but, kind of being at business school at the same time, that kind of helped too.
Right.
Yeah.
And is he from Seattle?
He's from Texas.
So you just kind of said, hey, dude, come to Seattle. We're going to start this company here.
Yeah, we actually met at Welcome Weekend and kind of got to know each other then. And then when we decided to move the company, I had a little bit more of a network here in terms of investors and engineering talent. So that's why we moved it to Seattle.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I know he's gone on to be, a great entrepreneur.
Yes.
And a great community leader here too. So are you better at kind of ideas and creation or selling?
I think they go hand in hand. Like, you've really got to be able to craft a great, mission. And that's part of telling the story. Like, why did you start the company? Why does it matter? Why should other people care? Why should an investor want to put a single dollar into this? Why should someone leave Amazon or Google or some nice engineering shop and join you at a startup that has a ton of risk associated?
Well, that's all selling. Everything you've said so far.
It is selling, but it also requires being able to create a compelling story or reason why they need to join. So I think they go hand in hand. If I would have a hard time selling if I didn't feel like there was a good
something to sell.
Story to sell.
Yeah, something you felt proud
that I
of.
believe.
And are you a strong operator?
I have operated, and so I would say I know what to do. It's not my passion, though.
Yeah.
I know what to do, how to prioritize, how to make sure that I get things done. How do I control the business? How do I run the business? How do I make sure we hit KPIs? Like, I know how to operate a business. I get a lot more passionate and excited about investing in entrepreneurs that are doing that now.
Yeah. Tell me about NetConversions. So you started to say that you heard the professor talk about it. Did he have any role whatsoever, or he just handed it over?
Yeah, so he was an advisor.
He became an advisor.
Yeah,
okay. And what was the company exactly?
So originally we started the company by using his research to be able to track how users were moving through an e-commerce website.
Oh, okay, cool.
And based on their behavior, we could actually provide a percentage that they would actually complete a transaction.
Okay, so it's like predictive analytics around...
Yeah, predictive analytics and the ability to kind of provide incentives for users to be able to complete a transaction.
Well, that was early because nowadays I feel like, I'm hovering and then I leave and then they come back. And
Right.
And a couple people are like, no, you should do that every time because then you get better and better deals.
Right.
Never actually buy it right then and there.
That's right.
Because you'll get an email like, come back, 15% if you buy it by Friday.
Right.
So that was ahead of its time.
Yeah. In fact, that's a great point. When we started the company and we went to go fundraise, we actually had interest from e-commerce companies that said, they actually signed papers that said, we would buy this product if you built it.
Oh, yeah.
And so we were able to raise money. We built it and nobody bought it.
Nobody bought it.
Yeah. It was ahead of its time. And so you fast forward.
Today, I'm sure there's tons of companies with that idea.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
and it's very relevant.
Right. They're most scared because they felt like they didn't want to discriminate based on behavior on a website and customer A getting a price of $20 and customer B getting a price of $10.
Interesting. But didn't you end up selling the company 2004?
So we ended up selling the company. Yeah. So if I fast forward a little bit,
valuable?
Yeah, it was. It turned out to be a really, really great outcome. So when nobody bought it, we ended up realizing that we needed to focus on sales. And so I went to the local Barnes & Noble store when they still existed and bought every book I could find on cold calling.
Oh,
And so,
tell us what to do.
yeah.
What'd you
Right.
learn, Andy? Give us the wisdom.
Oh, um, basically, the what I needed to do is just spend more time talking to customers, getting them on the phone, and focusing on, hey, how do we actually get some sales in the door? And what we realized after actually talking to customers, which is probably one of the most important things to do, was that our product was just too complex. And so we actually made our product dumber per se, and basically just provided analytics. And that's what people wanted to buy. And so we were able to get American Express, then it was Citigroup, then it was ESPN,
Those are
then it was
huge
AOL.
ones.
Yeah, and
Did you do that selling?
both David and I did. Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
I mean,
So
basically,
Barnes and Noble books
yeah,
came in handy.
that's right.
I mean, how to cold call into Amex? Like,
Yeah,
where do
yeah.
you even begin?
Oh,
Like in those
yeah.
companies, it's more to me because I do a lot of biz dev, but it's
Yeah.
like sometimes I lose interest in trying to figure out who to
Yeah,
call. I'm
right.
like, ugh,
That's
this
right.
company's so big, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, and it's honestly, we learned that it was a numbers game. So we just had to call a lot of companies and hope that some of them moved into the right
Yeah.
direction, and we catch them at the right time. We catch them at the right budget cycle.
Yeah.
Catch someone who's willing to champion us.
I like that. That's a really good lesson. And I think that there's so much that we obviously both want for our kids, but it would be great if our kids knew how to put themselves out there, how to reach out to others, and how to sell a story.
That's right.
Because that's a great skill.
It is. And there's actually a TED Talk folks may or may not be aware of. It was like one person's entire goal was to try to get to 1,000 no's. And the
In a
outcome,
row?
just asking crazy asks of anybody. Like,
Okay.
hey, going to McDonald's and say, hey, can I get a free Big Mac?
Yeah.
And just learning that, hey, it's okay to get rejected and so forth.
Interesting. I want to know, do you remember the name of it?
I think you could look it up, but it was really interesting. The takeaways he's got. He's like has no fear of rejection now.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's part sales is like one rejection is you're one call closer to a yes. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
just keep at it.
Yeah. Well, that's why it sounds like you like grit.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not a surprise. And so you sold the company, and then you and David took a little break, hopefully.
Yeah, so we sold it to a Quantive, and we stayed on there for most of the earnout, and then we wanted us to travel the world for a year, and made it.
You were single back then.
Yeah. It's nice.
Like a backpacking situation?
Yeah, we made it down to Peru and went to the Machu Picchu and had some beers up there and got excited about a business in TV. And I got so excited we actually canceled the rest of the trip, went back to Seattle and started the company.
How far into the trip were you when you did that?
30 days.
Oh my God. How long were you going to take?
1 year. Yeah, that was the
dude.
plan. Yeah, that was
Andy,
the plan. Yeah.
And now you got kids.
That's right.
Now you got the ball and chain.
That's right.
Too
That's
late.
Right. That's right. If I had to do it over again,
Andy,
Shauna,
that's a
I would
regret.
have
I have that
would
regret
have
for
taken
you.
the full year,
Yeah.
The grass is always greener. Like when you're taking a break, you're like, oh man, I can't wait to get back in the saddle.
Yeah.
And then when you're in the saddle, you're like, oh, I can't wait till this thing
No, of
sells.
course,
And then
of course.
when you're working for the man, you're like, oh, I can't wait till I've broken away from this and I'm back on vacation mode.
Yeah. I love it. That's so funny. 30 days. Okay, so then you knew what you were doing.
Yep.
Ish.
Yeah.
Just the two of you were the co-founders?
Yes.
And tell us exactly what Buddy TV. I love that name. How'd you find that name?
It was available.
Buddy
Yeah.
TV.
Right.
I love that name.
Yeah. No, we didn't hire anybody. It was just like, what can we find that was available on I think at that time it was probably GoDaddy or one of those other
I don't think GoDaddy
sites.
was around back then.
Maybe it wasn't them.
Okay, so you're in like Machu Picchu, you get excited, you buy a trip back to Seattle. And so how fully baked was the idea by the time you got back?
So I will say the idea changed a bit, but the original idea was, hey, people haven't changed in terms of watching TV in the last 50 years, but when they're watching TV, their behavior has changed dramatically. And so at that point in time, there are folks that were watching TV with their laptops open. They were doing homework while the TV was on. Multitasking.
Yeah.
That was kind of the phenomenon that
Versus like it's Saturday night, oh my gosh, Love Boat's on, everybody
stops.
Get the TV dinner out.
That's right. Everybody's watching at the same time. And so our thought was there's an opportunity to actually bridge what's called a second screen with the TV. And so that was the hypothesis was, hey, could we actually create an experience on a laptop that would actually have the TV experience and kind of a interactive social experience on top of that. And so our first jab at the product was we actually signed up some TV shows where the actors would actually provide commentary as the TV show was going on and provide this kind of community feature.
Which TV shows?
Well, some of these are so far back, like there's a sci-fi show called like The 10,000 or something. There's a bunch of shows that we did that were pretty interesting, and so in some of the award shows we'd have some of the stars come on. Yeah. But we realized again pretty quickly that it wasn't. It was challenging to get a lot of people on at the same time. Yeah, and so the quick learning there was that we found that even though we couldn't aggregate the audience, we tried this thing called transcripting, and we actually transcribed the entire experience and put it on text, and then we would actually publish that text, and that went super viral. So we were like, oh,
the text of the show
of the commentary.
The commentary.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'd get a lot more people reading the commentary after the show than during the show. And so so that became kind of the genesis of BuddyTV.com, which became the largest kind of independently held TV community where people came and talked about shows, interacted with each other, played games, shared photos, did all kinds of stuff on Buddy TV. Yeah.
And what was the business model? Like, how did the company make money?
So our first iteration of BuddyTV.com was all advertising. So it was a media-driven company. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And then that had also a successful exit.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you ever miss being, I mean, you've said that you prefer to invest in other entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And you've had a lot of success doing that. I know you spent some time as an angel investor. Mm-hmm. And what made you decide to raise a fund and become a venture company? What did you decide to do that?
So I met some friends of mine that actually did angel investing during my first company, and I was always intrigued by it. So I decided to kind of dip my toes in.
Mm-hmm. To go back to Barnes & Noble?
Yeah, that's right.
How to invest in a company.
That's right. Actually, I would say I was a little bit even more naive than that. So I probably should have read some books, but it ended up being like, hey, you go to a party and you end up chatting with an angel investor and like, oh, I'm very excited about X company. And I'm like, oh, I'd love to learn how to do that. And so you just kind of write a check and then hope and pray that it turns out to be okay.
Did it ever work?
Surprisingly, like I caught the bug because it worked a couple of times.
Yeah. And you're a gambler.
Right. I enjoy it. Yeah. I prefer to call it investing than gambling, but yeah. So I ended up doing about 95 angel deals over about 10 years, and had. Not only did I feel like I got a lot of energy out of it, I feel like surrounding myself with entrepreneurs, I just feel like I get smarter and I get more optimistic. There's just a lot of high, great energy that comes from it. I also was able to do really well financially on it, so it made sense, after finishing up the second startup to find out, hey, can we actually start a fund and make this more of an institution and do it full time? Mm-hmm. And so we started that in late 2017, and I feel like I'm really doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So it's been great. A ton of fun.
Well, you're good at it. And so how do you come across deal flow?
Right now, because I've invested a lot as an angel, and I have two other partners, one in San Francisco and one in LA, that have also done a lot of angel investing. We get a fair amount of deal flow just directly to us. But I would say our entrepreneurs that we've invested in, great source of deal flow. Our LPs, are basically investors in our fund, also provide really great deal flow. And then obviously our personal connections around town. And we also are doing a lot of entrepreneurial events around town. So we try to use that as a way to kind of make sure that people know that we're here, and that if they're thinking about starting an early stage tech company in Seattle and LA, that we are definitely somebody that they should reach out to.
And is there a certain type of company that you invest in, and at what stage? It's early stage, so like seed round?
Yeah, so pre-seed will go as early as that, which today's parlance, it's probably something where you have a team, you have an idea, you may even have a few, an early demo, but that's about it. To a seed level company where you actually have some customers, you have some traction on revenue and so forth. So those are kind of the areas stage that we would invest in. But we really like companies that have entrepreneurs are extremely passionate about what they do, but also attacking a large market and have some sort of data connection for what they're trying to accomplish. Yeah.
I don't mean to put down my mom or your mom, but like if
Right.
they're listening, like when you say data connection, doesn't every company now have some sort of data connection?
Yeah. So to dive in a little bit deeper, I can use an example. Like we invested in a company called Possible Finance, and they're trying to revolutionize kind of financial wellness, specifically with payday loans to start. And payday loans are traditionally these shops that are on every corner in the U.S. providing kind of high interest loans. We are using data to be able to provide underwriting based on transactional data. So we don't need to have a W-2, we don't need to have credit history, but we can use transactional history to be able to underwrite very, very quickly and provide a much much better loan for a user. And so that's leveraging data in such a way that gives you an advantage in building a company. And also we think long-term data can also be a moat for a company too. So it's very, very difficult for a competitor to come in because you've built such great knowledge about that specific industry. Yeah.
And so is it limited to companies that would own that data?
Yeah, either they own primary data, or two, they have a really unique lens on leveraging data. And so they may have access to third-party data, but they've got a really unique way of being able to analyze it that gives them an advantage.
Got it. And what if they come back to you and they're now raising an A, B, and they just want you because you've been such a great partner for them?
Yeah.
Do you just then refer that out, or how does that business work for people who might not know?
Yeah, so if we're not already an existing investor and they're already further along, then we would refer them to other partners that we like.
And what if you are in and they want you back in?
Yeah, if they are in, we definitely would want to try to participate if it's one that we have strong conviction on. And so we usually reserve half of our fund to do follow-ons. And so so we definitely want to be investing in our best companies.
What should entrepreneurs be looking for on how to select an investor?
Yeah, that's such a great question because I think
some people just get excited. They're like, "Oh, money, done,"
Yeah,
and
that's
they're
right.
not thinking do I actually want to be in business with this person? Are they going to bring any value?
Yeah. For a first-time entrepreneur, that's exactly the gut reaction. It's like anybody who's willing to give me money, I'm willing to take Uncle Bob to angel investor, friends and family. End of the day, not all money is created equal. I'd say there's 3 types of money that you can get. One is kind of what I call strategic money. These are folks who write the check, but they're very accessible. Like you want to text them for an intro. You're like, hey, I'd love to sit down for coffee and do a strategy session. They're very accessible. They open up their Rolodex. They are high value investors.
And do those have a board seat usually?
No, not necessarily.
Oh, okay. So just strategic, great partners.
Yeah, great partners. And the way that I would check up on that is I would actually do diligence on that investor. So call some of their portfolio companies, ask them, hey, how helpful was this investor in your company? The second type of investor is I would say kind of like passive. They're just writing their check and then they forget about it. And so that's actually not bad. Because
it's nice that they're not harassing you.
They're not harassing you. Yeah. They're not asking for updates. They're
trying to come in and influence.
Right. Yeah. That's right. And then there's a third class of investors, which is you've got to make sure you avoid because it's like a marriage. You can't get rid of an investor. And so there are what I would call negative value add investors.
It's even worse than a marriage. You can get rid of it.
Right. That's right.
It's like a marriage with kids.
That's right. So
a divorce with kids.
Yeah. So I have seen multiple deals where by having the wrong investors in there, it actually tanked the company. And so it's really, really important not to have that third class of investors.
Yeah. And that's stuff that you've learned along the way through being an investor, but it sounds like you also had a good experience as an entrepreneur with picking good investors.
Yeah, yeah.
Are there other learnings from being an entrepreneur that you could teach before we get more into the investing side? Because I'm assuming, I don't even know who's listening to these podcasts, but sometimes it's other entrepreneurs. I don't know how many investors, but people in the tech world, I think, sometimes listen. And so what were kind of some of the teachable moments from Buddy TV and NetConversions as far as like, oh, I wish someone had told me?
Yeah. I would say one area, and this is pretty tactical, is most first-time entrepreneurs, I've also heard this from other entrepreneurs as well, first-time folks will spend the majority of their time building product. Whereas I would say second-time entrepreneurs and folks that have done this for a while are always going to figure out what their edge is in terms of customer acquisition or distribution. Mm-hmm. And that is more important than product. And so if I had to flip the equation, it would be build a great product, but spend even more time on distribution and customer acquisition. Okay. Because ultimately that's what's going to put you in kind of this venture track that's going to be very attractive for investors at the A, at the B, at the C. You may be able to get away with pre-seed and seed with a nice product, but you got to figure out that customer acquisition. Sales. Yeah.
And so, what if you're selling something and the product isn't quite right, and then the customer doesn't re-up? Doesn't that look worse to an investor? Like, wait, you had these customers, now you don't. They didn't see value in your product.
Yeah. I'm not saying build a crappy product, but definitely in terms of like the time spent really figuring out unit economics needs to be larger than the product itself. Mm-hmm. So that's the amount of discipline it takes to kind of make these things really work and gets kind of the next round of investors really excited. Is that you really have this kind of unique engine where you can pour gas on it and you know that sales is going to grow. Mm-hmm. So you do need to have a baseline of a product that actually works. But if you had to compare company A, which may have, let's say, a 10 out of 10 on product, but 2 out of 10 on distribution, or a company that's like 7 or 8 out of 10 on the product, maybe not as refined.
Well, because you can continue to improve the product.
Yeah, that's right. But has this kind of unique engine that they've got a distribution partner that can get this out to thousands of users at a very, very low cost. I'd much rather buy into that company than the former. Mm-hmm. So that would be one learning, would be kind of making sure that the KPIs are set that you understand CAC as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. Probably the second piece is I'm very, very keen on figuring out how good is the entrepreneur at attracting great talent. And so that can be done pretty quickly. Like, in the first couple of meetings when I'm meeting with the team, the management team.
What types of traits are you looking for?
Like, hey, did they hire somebody that's capable of leading the company potentially? And so I'm looking at senior team. Are they hiring folks that, wow, they're not going to be able to do it on their own. Their understanding of the market is pretty shallow. Mm-hmm. I'm really looking for like, hey, did they hire the best that they could? Mm-hmm. And is that person as strong or if not better than the CEO? And if they have, I'm very, very bullish on the company. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what about traits like self-awareness?
Yeah.
Is that important to you? Or like ability to give them feedback? Like if you want to give them feedback, that they're not going to be like, hey, I know what I'm doing. I don't need your feedback.
Right. I absolutely think that that's a critical trait. The thing that's interesting about pre-seed and seed investing is we just don't have that much information on the company. Mm-hmm. So really where we actually have an edge in investing is how good are we at identifying talent at the CEO level and their co-founders. And self-awareness is one that's really, really important because if you're not self-aware, you can go down a rabbit hole that you'll never be able to get out of. Mm-hmm. And so, are you surrounding yourself with folks that are very thoughtful in their advice to you? Are you able to take conflicting advice and be able to synthesize it and make a good decision.
I like that. That's a good point.
Yeah. How well do you respond to conflict? How well do you respond to bad news? How well do you respond to no money in the bank? Like all those kinds of things are so important.
And the people, who are you surrounding yourself with? Because they might be fine, but their spouse might be like, yo, you need to get a job.
Totally. And that's one that I think is probably undervalued in terms of analysis at this point, which is what's the blow up risk here that are out of your control.
We look at that as recruiters because that's the worst, because you're like, we've already done all the work.
Right.
The client loves us. We love the candidate. The candidate loves the job. And then the candidate might turn it down for things that are just, you get caught off guard, like blind spots. And it could be something like, my husband is not interested in me taking a startup role right now. Right. And they weren't even aware of how much that would influence them at decision time.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Just life, outside of work.
Absolutely.
And so I think that it's important to treat everybody kind of in this holistic way of like all of you, not just you who I'm seeing in a coffee meeting to talk about your business, but like what your drivers are, what your values are, what your spouse thinks.
That's right. That's right.
Which I think is definitely something that's easy to overlook.
Absolutely.
And so what role are you playing right now? Like, how do you spend your time?
So right now, I would say there's probably 3 areas that we focus on. One is sourcing deals. So we always want to make sure we're getting access to the best and the brightest entrepreneurs out there. So definitely sourcing deals. I spent a lot of time sitting on boards, and so it's how are we actually helping our portfolio companies? We have 15 right now, and so that's a heavy load.
That is a heavy load.
So what are the one or two things?
Do you take a board seat on all of them? Not you personally, but your company?
No, if we lead the deal, we definitely take a board seat. So I'm on 4 right now out of the 15.
That's a lot.
So
what does that role entail?
Yeah,
being on a board of a startup.
A couple of things. One is obviously the role of the board is really to keep the CEO accountable, and so you really want to make sure that everybody on the board is aligned. Hey, what are the milestones that we want to get to? Are we financed properly? Are we making right decisions strategically? The last thing I want to do is spend any time kind of like, hey, you need to make this button orange or red. Like, we don't get into the nitty gritty of the business, but we really do want to make sure the budget's set right, financing strategy is set right, the CEO goals are set right. We're giving good feedback to the CEO. Those are some of the major things that we do as a board.
And so how do CEOs prepare for board meetings?
Yeah. The best CEOs, I think, prep the board prior to the meeting. So usually,
like any board.
Right.
Right? You're like, I don't want to come in and spend the first 20 minutes trying to get up to speed.
That's right. And so I would say a lot of the prep is making sure all the reporting is already set ahead of time. And so I can make marks on questions I might have in terms of, anything that kind of stands out to me. And then what are the kind of 2 or 3 topics? Sometimes it's just one, but what are the topics that we really need to dive into? And one of the litmus tests is what's keeping up the CEO at night, so let's make sure we tackle those problems and go deep. And then probably the last piece is just, I think healthy boards are able to just give CEOs good feedback.
Yeah.
So
I had an entrepreneur on here on the podcast that said, for her, kind of picking a board member or an investor is sometimes linked to like how you feel when you see their name come across your phone.
Right.
Like, what does your stomach do? Is it like panic, or do you get excited because you're going to get a productive phone call and you're going to get great advice and you're going to be energized by it?
Yep.
Or are you going to be like this feeling of like, I'm getting called to the principal's office and I'm going to get a hand slap?
Yep.
And I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's like at the end of the day, it's just another human being. And
That's right.
How are we going to treat each other?
That's right. Exactly.
I think that's great.
That's a great litmus test. I'm going to remember that. That's a good one.
You got to write that. You got to write that one down. And so, how do you stay informed, just in life, about like what's going on in the tech world, where the trends are, how you can stay ahead of your competition?
Yeah.
You can't say too much because your competition might be listening. I'm just kidding.
No, that's a good question. I actually, one litmus test too is like, what do you do in your spare time? Like, I actually just really enjoy reading up on what trends are happening. I like My wife probably doesn't like it, but I like buying every gadget I can find and playing with it. It's
What's
like
the
a
latest
toy.
gadget?
I got the Pixel 3a just to play with it, which is the new Google phone. I got the Aura Ring. I've got a few other,
I
devices
know you love
coming.
your Aura Ring.
Yeah.
And the Pixel, I'm excited to hear your update on that.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
you also told me about the podcast, not the podcast, I downloaded it. Of course, I'm paying for it, and I barely use it. But the
Masterclass.
Masterclass.
Yeah,
I did some
yeah.
cooking classes on
Oh,
there,
good.
but I thought that was pretty cool.
It is. It's great, and I love learning from folks that are outside of tech and outside of business and entrepreneurship. I think you can learn a lot from watching an acting class. You can learn a lot from, they have photography, storytelling, all kinds of really interesting authors are great. So yeah. So those are all things I'm just naturally curious, and so
I think that's a
fun.
nice attribute of also an entrepreneur. And how closely do you pay attention to politics and stuff like that? Not that we're going to get into that on this.
Yeah,
but I'm just curious.
I've found that especially most recently, I think. It's been eating up quite a bit of my time on the national side, and so I've been trying to wean myself off of watching those headlines because I can just
it's so depressing.
Yeah. Emotionally, it's not good for me.
Yeah.
and it's not it's that impactful, and so I'm trying to bring it actually more to civic stuff. And so if I need to have a little bit of a bite of politics, I like to look at, hey, what can we do locally, because that's the most impact that I can have. So
there's so much.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy here in Seattle.
Yeah. And so I know that you and Diana have two
boys.
Kids,
Yeah,
two boys. How old are they now?
2 and 4.
2 and 4. So that's obviously got to keep you busy. And
it is.
What do you? How has your life changed since becoming a dad?
It's changed a ton.
I guess we're not going to the clubs in New York.
That's right.
Or maybe we are.
Right. We definitely are not eating out as much, but doing a lot more kid activities. My weekends have changed dramatically, I think I went to 2 or 3 birthday parties this last weekend. So
oh, geez.
Yeah.
And how do you think you'll raise them as far as what's similar or different than how you were raised?
Oh, that's a great question. I think we are in this phase of trying lots of activities and trying to figure out
what sticks.
Yeah, what they're excited about and what sticks. And I suspect that we're not going to know for another.
Yeah, they're so little.
Another few years, but they're doing a little bit of gym, a little bit of Spanish, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So yeah,
that's great.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of just let it rip.
Yeah,
let it see where it takes you and
absolutely
what they're interested in.
Yeah, and I would say probably the one thing that Diana and I are pretty aligned on is this notion of hey, can we instill more of the EQ side? IQ is fine. Hey, just have good habits. Here's how you study and stay disciplined and so forth. But that stuff can be more or less taught, but what can we do as parents to
teach empathy,
being able to communicate, share, be thoughtful, be kind, be gentle, be respectful, all those things that's really what's gonna, I think, make them unique kind of moving forward, because I think the challenge now is that technology has made that a lot less of a focus.
And so also, it sounds like you were also driven out of need because your parents needed you to contribute to the household. And you've had success, financial success that might be different than how you were raised. How are you going to keep your kids humble?
Yeah. That's a great question. It's a philosophical one that we're dealing with, which is, hey, I think money is more of it's almost like it's a symptom. It's not a root cause. If you can distill values, then money's kind of I think the right word is it's kind of an amplifier. And so if you truly are a generous person and you do care about others, you have respect for others, money is just going to allow you to do that in a much more meaningful way. Whereas if you're very self-absorbed, you're not self-aware. Imagine what money can do to that person.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
all of a sudden, like we're talking crazy.
Yeah,
And
crazy
so,
town. And your kids get
yeah.
to watch you.
That's
and so
right.
they
That's
learn
right.
so much more from watching you. And so what type of impact are you and Diana trying to have as far as giving back? I know that we talked about the nonprofit, and I want to hear a little bit more about that. But are there other causes that are kind of near and dear to you that you hope to kind of try to move the needle on?
Yeah, yeah. And I think it also kind of bleeds into our investment philosophy too at Unlock, because we feel like there's enough VCs out there that are kind of going for, hey, number one goal is returns and unicorns and so forth. Like, it is important. Like, that's how we actually build something that's sustainable, and we got to return money to our LPs. But I think that there's something that goes beyond that in terms of like, hey, what is the company's purpose? Like, is there something that's innate about that company that has a mission attached to it? Because that mission will make the company more successful in attracting talent.
For sure.
It's going to make a lot easier for the company to handle downtimes when they say, hey, you know what? We're doing this because we're actually doing something that's
bigger than us.
justice,
kind of, yeah.
and helping those who have less than us and so forth. And so I think that, our philosophy is, or at least our belief is, that we've been given quite a bit in terms of being, totally blessed to be born in this country, and education and capital resources and so forth, that to be able to give back and to those who have less. Like, hey, can we provide an opportunity in terms of education, in terms of jobs, in terms of
So how are you doing that?
So one example is with Future Hope. We're looking at places where people are making less than $2 a day, and offering a technology training program and leadership training program to be able to bridge the gap into getting a much higher paying job and being able to provide for their families. Because
that's
at
really
the end,
cool.
end of the day, like many folks can't handle an emergency, and so being able to have the right skill set and so forth and bridge that gap is an awesome opportunity. It's also very, very inspiring to
I'm
to
sure.
watch.
And so where is that? Where is it located?
El Salvador.
El Salvador.
Yeah.
And how did you come up with that?
We when I had opportunities to take a couple weeks off, for vacation or what have you. I always wanted to go visit more non-traveled,
The world less traveled.
less traveled, hang out with people who are actually working in NGOs, and those are inspiring. They're fun. I learned a lot, and after traveling to quite a few countries, was pulled by El Salvador because, I'm not medically trained and so forth. So like, what can we do to give back? And there was a few of us geeks that were like,
so you did it with others?
Yeah.
That's
we did
really
it with others.
cool.
And so we were like, hey, why don't we see if we can't, and at that point, like, technology was getting very cheap, so it's very easy to put down computers. The curriculum was very cheap. It's actually pretty cheap to hire a teacher. Like, we could get a program up and running, and so that was the beginnings of it.
And when did you start it?
That was about 10 years ago.
And where is it now? Like, do you have people that have gone through this?
Yeah, we've had multiple graduates.
That's so cool, Andy. I love that.
Yeah. So we're fired up.
You should feel great about that. That's tangible, measurable impact. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I love it. And so this is my question I ask everyone at the end.
Yeah.
Is what fuels you?
So I would say a few things fuel me. One is community. So I love hanging out with entrepreneurs like yourself, and we're part of EO. Like, that sort of thing is the people you hang out with, I think, provide a ton of fuel. So I would say that would definitely be one. I think I've been very fortunate with a family that's actually supportive. It's not easy being an entrepreneur, and you're gone a fair amount. And
Diana's taking one for the team.
That's right. Yeah. So that makes a huge difference. And I'm able to spend hours I feel like are productive. I'm also fueled, I think, a lot by kind of maybe not as much as you, but definitely kind of morning habits as well. So, hey, how do I start?
Not as much as me at
Yeah.
all. Are you
Yeah,
kidding?
yeah.
I
I mean,
am
you're
not.
doing 7 minutes
Dude.
times 3.
No,
You're doing
only
like
when
all
I'm
these
with
things.
you, just to try to show off for you.
Right.
I love that you're like, no, I want to be more of a morning habit. This morning I was snooze.
Oh, okay.
Snooze
Got
and
it.
Instagram.
Oh, nice.
That was my morning habit.
Nice.
And then my
Yeah.
calm came up and I hit
That's the
snooze.
part I'm going to be working on next is the meditation. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm like,
No,
hey,
right.
diet, a little bit of exercise.
Are you still doing
Yeah.
the intermittent fasting?
I am. Yeah, yeah.
Ugh, I can't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
tried. I'm so hungry.
8 hours a day of eating.
Yeah.
That's it.
You are an anomaly. And I know that you know this because people tell you this, but for people who haven't met you, and I don't want, you are, there's something about you that is like the wise one. Like you really are.
that.
That's how I see you. You're the person who I trust. Not the only person,
Yeah.
but you are a person that's very, I don't know. I just trust you. I believe you. And I think you've got a great head on your shoulders and you're humble. And I'm just super psyched that we've become friends.
Same here.
Yeah,
Same here.
it's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. I'm super excited about what you're doing with Fuel too. The podcasts have been amazing. So
Oh,
I feel
thanks.
honored to be here.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
It's been fun. I'm getting to know people better, so it's great. Okay, thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the What Fuels You podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, and follow us on social media to keep up with the latest news and episodes. You can also contact us at podcast@fueltalent.com to provide feedback, ask questions, and share topics or guests you would like us to cover in the future. We hope you feel inspired by our guests and that we have helped fuel your day. Join us next time for another episode of What Fuels You.